Awarding XP in Shadowdark is so simple, it's confusing. Now, I'm not going to drag this out, I'm just going to tell you how it works. When your characters find something that has value, and that value can be intangible, they are awarded 1, 3, or 10 experience points based on the value of that discovery as interpreted by the Game Master. And when they reach their current level times 10 XP, they level up. So to go from levels 2 to level 3 takes 20 experience points. That's it. That's really all that you need to know. Welcome back to the channel, everyone.
It's been 84 years.
My wife and I had some house guests, we did a little traveling, and then we both got sick and coughed for weeks. But now I'm healthy enough to make a video again. Of course, there's more nuance to Shadowdark's XP system than I just explained in the first couple of seconds of this video. And if you want to dive deeper, keep watching. For the rest of this video, we're going to consider Shadowdark's experience point system and the design's effects on both running and playing the game. But first, a short story. If you don't like stories, then you can skip to this point in the video or just use the bookmarks in the timeline below. Now, I came to Dungeons & Dragons by way of board games. Back in junior high and high school, my friends and I would play games like Axis and Allies, Fortress America, Diplomacy, or Buck Rogers' Battle for the 25th Century. And we played countless hours of Hero Quest as well, which was actually one of my gateways to tabletop role-playing games, as we discussed in this video right over here.
Broadsword.
Now, we had loads of experience pushing little plastic figures around and observing the rules of detailed instruction booklets. Back in college, I got this crazy idea that I was going to run a Dungeons & Dragons game, even though I'd never played before. Now, we lacked a friendly local game store, and so I ordered my books back on July 28th of 2008. Now, they showed up a couple of days later, and this was a really exciting thing for me to get in the mail. The books were full of inspiring art. They were full of monsters and heroes, magic spells, and legendary swords. And they actually smelled pretty good too. They came in this slipcase here that was every bit as handsome as advertised. After reading the books, I invited some friends to a game. Now, because we were more familiar with board games at that time, we followed the rules about experience points to a T. In the player's handbook, I found this table, and in the Dungeon Master's Guide, I found this one. And for me, as a brand new player and game master, these tables represented possibility. I mean, just imagine all of the adventure that we could get up to as we vanquished the foes necessary to push our characters up to max level. This is an actual screenshot of my Game Master's notes from my very first session of Dungeons & Dragons back in September of 2008. I have no idea why you keep this stuff. But it's the first combat encounter that I ever created. The party met in a tavern, and they got into a bar fight with a few belligerent locals. Nothing serious, just a little dust-up, so that they could learn how combat worked and we could all get familiar with our character sheets. As you can see in my notes, I dutifully counted up all of the experience points, 268, that my players would earn from this encounter. When they finally hit the next level, my players would pass the books around shopping for new spells or magic items or powers or whatever. And for many of you, this is probably a very familiar post-session ritual. Eventually, a very interesting thing started to happen at my table. My players, my rules-focused, power gaming, tactics-first players, became more interested in the story and what was going to happen next than their next feat or fighter power or spell or whatever. It's not that they didn't want to level. I mean, trust me, they really did want to level. But their character, their backstory, and the future of our shared campaign became just as important to them. Over time, I moved to just awarding levels based on accomplishing major adventure milestones. Things went on like this for a while, but then eventually, and this is on me, it seemed like maybe those levels weren't coming fast enough. So I just told my players that they could level up every 3 sessions. And I guess that's fine. But the problem with milestone or even periodic leveling is that it doesn't motivate the players to change their behaviors in ways that add any value whatsoever to the game. I don't know. Maybe calling this a problem is a bit of a stretch. To be fair, the game impact of an experience system that doesn't motivate specific player behavior is probably pretty minimal. And I suppose that's the issue, the lack of impact. Playing this way completely dissociates player actions from character advancement. As long as you're a part of the game, you get more levels and abilities. You can win or lose. You can lead or languish. But the result is always the same. And I guess I was more or less fine with this for years. Maybe I just didn't really think about it. And then I discovered old school play. I've always been interested in rules-light systems, things that kind of get back to basics, but I didn't really understand why, and Shadowdark is helping me understand that. and it's helping me understand old games that I'd already owned and already read in the past. At first glance, XP in Shadowdark, like many other old school RPGs, appears to be a treasure for XP system. It's easy for us to dismiss these kinds of XP systems as crude and lowbrow. I mean, doesn't this just encourage kill and take gameplay? But in reality, Shadowdark is not an XP for gold system, at least not exclusively. This is a screenshot of page 117 in the Shadowdark core rulebook, and it's the only page that you need in order to know how to award XP in the game. First, let's focus on the red section, the sources of XP. Now, characters are awarded experience points when they recover valuable treasure finds and boons from dangerous locales. Players go where others won't, and they bring back treasure that others can't. Player characters, I guess. Players are cowards that come over and eat my pizza. While there is a certain amount of individual character motivation that comes into play, more on this a bit later, the whole point of going into a dungeon is for the PCs to come out again richer than when they went in. That's the goal, and accomplishing it is what we're awarding the XP for. There seems to be a lot of confusion online for first-time Shadowdark game masters about awarding XP for treasure. To clear this up, let's cover a little bit of vocabulary. First, a treasure find, as described in the book, is a noun. It refers to all of the valuable stuff that you can find together at one time. Say you find a chest with 100 gold pieces in it and a chalice that's worth another 75. That's one treasure find, and it's worth 175 gold pieces. Personally, I count magic items separately, even if my party finds them alongside other monetary treasure, but the system does give game masters a lot of flexibility to make rulings about this however you see fit. XP is not only awarded for coins and jewels and things like that. The term boon is a Shadowdark keyword, and it's defined as any non-monetary source of value or benefit. Discovering secrets, obtaining a blessing from a god, obtaining a meaningful trophy or a title, and the accompanying influence, which is bestowed by a regional ruler, these are all examples of boons. You can't spend them, but they still have value. In Shadowdark, no XP is awarded for killing monsters. Now look, I know that every single Shadowdark video you have ever watched has gushed about this aspect of the game, and I guess this video is no exception. Because for a lot of players, this is their first experience with that old school loop. In Shadowdark, killing things is not a goal, and players are awarded no XP for it.
I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
This game is not about hunting monsters. It's about coming home with treasure. It's about earning influence, the favor of gods, kings, and queens, the kinds of individuals who can help you achieve your goals. But the Shadowdark is dangerous. Very dangerous. And given that fact, what on Geed's green earth could possess a person to venture into the darkness time and time and time again? You see, Shadowdark characters are brave. Or very stupid. Now, when I say they're brave, I'm making the assumption that there's at least some role-playing happening at your table. It doesn't have to be much, but your players are at least considering who their character is and why they would take the actions that they take. Your characters, they're not necessarily greedy, but they're the kind of person who's swinging for the fences. They're taking risks. Maybe they saw the hardscrabble life of mediocrity they were born into, and they decided to do something about it. Or maybe they're the third in line for the throne. And while their brother inherits the kingdom, incompetent though he may be, they're striking out into the wild to seek their own fortune. When a Shadowdark character goes into a dungeon, the odds are very good, dangerously high, that they won't come back out again. To me, this means that Shadowdark characters are braver or stupider than characters in D&D 5e or Pathfinder or Savage Worlds or Powered by the Apocalypse or many other modern RPGs. Because the danger to the PCs is real, if you believe that your characters are fully fleshed out people with hopes and dreams and a desire to stay alive, it's logical to conclude that two things are true. One, they are very brave, and two, they have a good reason for venturing into the Shadowdark. Now, their motivation does not have to be complicated. It just has to be worth risking their lives again and again and again. That's why I say that Shadowdark is about rewarding accomplishment. They did not wander into this dungeon by accident. They went inside for a reason worth dying for. What is it that motivates your PCs to risk their lives? Maybe they're just thrill seekers, or maybe they have a sick family member, or maybe they're just sick of being a peasant. They want to be somebody. Why? Who are they trying to impress? Now look, your players don't have to answer any of these questions. You can have a ton of fun playing Shadowdark and never once consider the reasons that the characters are sticking their necks out. And frankly, maybe as players, we don't want to get too close to our characters. I mean, what if they die, having never achieved their goal? That would be tragic. But tragedy is the basis for some great drama. Now, I don't know. Maybe I just want D&D to hurt me so that I can feel something in this hellscape we call existence. That got a little too serious. Better lighten the mood. The point is, they went in there with a goal. Did they achieve it? Did they discover the lost tome of the Hawk Wizard from the catacombs beneath the church in Oldwin Town at the behest of the Duke of Claremont? Excellent. If so, you got 3 XP for recovering the magic item and 1 XP for doing something for the Duke. Now he owes you a favor. At first glance, this sounds a lot like rewarding the players for breaking into somebody else's home and taking their well-guarded loot. But really, they achieved 4 XP for accomplishing a goal, for completing a quest. Now, what about the other treasure, the boons and the magic items that they found in the process? These things that they couldn't have possibly known were in the dungeon when they went in there? Yeah, for those items, it's more like XP for treasure. But those treasures and the wealth that they bring your party members push the PCs that much closer to accomplishing whatever goal led them to take up a life of adventuring in the first place. As I said at the top of the video, your players are awarded XP for obtaining things that have value. That includes those intangibles like secrets and promises or personal accomplishments. Those intangibles aren't unlike being awarded XP for miniature adventure milestones. If you combine those sources of XP with the experience earned for finding treasure, then Shadowdark starts to feel a lot more like a hybrid XP system, part milestone-based and part treasure-based. If you're the game master, this gives you incredible flexibility on how you provide experience points to your players with an easy-to-use framework that has small number math. In the yellow section, it describes treasure qualities: poor, normal, fabulous, and legendary. We're going to skip poor treasure. It's basically fantasy garbage and it's worth 0 XP. The next 3, normal, fabulous, and legendary, are worth 1, 3, or 10 XP each. The number basically triples in value each time. Legendary would be 9, but I think Kelsey made it 10 just to make the math easier. Now, of course, you could always tweak the numbers a bit here or there, make them a little bit higher, a little bit lower. But if you just stick with these 3 values, you'll find that it works really well for you as the GM and keeps things simple. For your first session of Shadowdark, there's some examples at the bottom of the page to help you get started. At first glance, the blue section seems to just be a rule of thumb about how much gold you should give out based on your party's average level. But gold really does matter in Shadowdark because it can speed up character advancement through carousing. While it's not explicit on the page, the text seems to apply to a 1 experience point treasure find. So that means we can just scale this up 3x or 10x for a fabulous or legendary find. Because players can spend their gold to boost their carousing rolls, which in turn earns them additional XP, spendable treasure has a direct effect on the pace of character advancement. If you award too much gold, then your players will advance more quickly than anticipated. If you award a little bit too little, they'll advance more slowly. The right pace for character advancement speed will vary from group to group, but once you've run a few sessions, you'll develop a feel for it and you'll be able to get it right for your table. Now, you know how XP works in Shadowdark. It's simple, it's flexible, and it's meaningful. As a game master, you can reward clever play and accomplishment. Your players aren't just killing monsters to climb some ladder. They're accomplishing goals, they're solving problems, and they're hopefully taking risks that matter. Of course, even the bravest of heroes can fall, but when they succeed, it's going to be because they've earned it. Maybe they were just lucky. The next time you sit down to play Shadowdark, think about the goals that your players and their characters are pursuing. Whatever they're going after, make sure it's worth dying for. Thanks for watching.